Hey, 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 welcome back to another episode of Bigfoot Society Live. This week, I have a very awesome guest I'll be bringing on in a minute. I just want to make sure that everything sounds good. If there's anyone in the chat right now, if you could just say, hey, sounds good, or, looks good. Well, we know it looks good. All right. But just say, hey, things sound good. Let me know that you can hear what I'm saying right now in the chat. That would be much appreciated. But I'm going to go ahead and bring on my guest here. Hello, Heather Moser. How's it going?
Hi, I'm well. How are you?
Very good, very good. Thanks for hanging out with me tonight on the Bigfoot Society podcast. I'm going to go ahead and read a bio that you sent over just to let the listeners of the live show and here we go. Okay, so real quick, I want to shout this out. Skinwalker : Heather Moser. That's a joke from Monsteropolis. Rock and roll. If you're a Facebook user, I can't see what your name is unless you connect to Restream. So you can go ahead and just type out what your name is too, so I can call you out. But anyways, let's get going. Heather, I'm going to read your bio here, and this is live, but also it's for the Bigfoot Society podcast because this is listened to afterwards as well. So Heather Moser grew up in the foothills of Appalachia. She's a classics professor, an author, a researcher. She's a producer and researcher for Small Town Monsters, as well as an ongoing contributor to the Weird Writer blog for Into the Fray Radio podcast. Hashtag Shannon LeGros. I just add that in. Her work covers folkloric elements from different time periods and cultures. Heather is also a co-host and blog writer for the Caravan Library of Lore podcast. She loves exploring haunted locations with her friends at Hometown Paranormal. So we got you got a lot going on there, which is awesome. You are all over the place. Trying to think of my first memory of I remember, I want to say it was either Small Town Monsters, Monsteropolis podcast, and they had you on. It may have been for the Bell Witch, actually. And I remember like thinking, wow, who's this person that is like giving crud back to Seth? This is amazing. Like, I love that. That is that's a great thing. Yeah. And even, I mean, you got to keep things real. And I appreciate that about you. So keep giving it to Seth, you know. Seth's a buddy. I like Seth. Let's see. Okay, so it looks like here we go. So it's Joe Purdue, our friend from West Virginia. So
hi, Joe.
Thanks for being in the chat, Joe, and hanging out with us. But I'm curious, Heather. So what is give us a definition of what folklore is, because when I think Heather Moser, I'm thinking you're heavily involved with folklore. So how are you explaining that to people that might not know a lot about what that is?
So, well, I would categorize folklore as stories that have been passed down originally, like an oral tradition passed down through generations about anything really. It doesn't have to be monster related. It could be, how to go about your day, whether that's washing clothes or planting crops or whatnot. That just gets passed down through generations, and then eventually it gets written down. And then it changes and morphs over time, and you can usually trace that back to see how things have altered over time.
So like the stories will change over time as they're passed down, or things like that. Yeah, that's cool. I think you mentioned that in I remember you talking about that in the latest Mothman movie from Small Town Monsters, right? You talk about how like stories get brought over from different European countries and then into like Appalachia part of the U.S. What was it that first drew you to folklore? Do you remember if it was a certain thing?
No, not necessarily a certain thing. Just where I grew up, I didn't have a sense of my roots necessarily. It really hit me in one of my college classes in my undergrad. It was an education class. They were trying to teach us how to connect to students. And one of the exercises was to talk about some sort of family tradition that comes from your roots. And these people had amazing stories of Christmas traditions, or I don't know, Easter, whatever, that had to do with Irish roots or Scottish roots or
Oh,
Italian roots,
sure.
but they could put it back through that. And I didn't have that. Um, so I started to look into my heritage
Okay.
shortly after that because I felt really disconnected, because everybody seemed to know who their people were, I guess. And come to
Yeah.
find out that most of my family for many generations were here in Appalachia or Appalachia. So that would be why I didn't have a memory or people just passing something down from a particular European country, but we
Okay.
have our own culture here. And so then I started to look into the stories in the area, and that's how that all started. And then, of course,
Interesting.
monsters are cool, so you throw monsters in the mix, and
Monsters are cool. I mean, it's either monsters or dinosaurs, and obviously my thing is monsters.
hey,
My kid's thing is dinosaurs. We'll get him in the cryptids eventually. But I want
yeah,
to shout out a few people in the chat. We got Ashers, hi friends, and we got
hi,
Carrick from Crash Course Cryptozoology. Evening, both of you excited for the podcast. Thank you for hanging out with us. The Appalachian part. It's my father was a naturalist, and he had a lot of interesting books, and I remember one of them was the Foxfire series.
yeah,
I don't know if you've ever read those, but those are
yeah.
like I'm guessing they're like pretty much the Bible for like the stuff in there is intense. It's very, very
Yeah,
cool though.
it was a great project. I think it was started in the 70s, and it was if
Hmm.
I'm remembering correctly, a school teacher in Georgia um, asked students, and like started it by asking his students to go home and speak with their grandparents about
Okay.
stories on how to like cure meat, how to spin yarn. I mean, like all of this stuff on how
Yeah,
to live, and then wrote it down, and then it's just continued since then. There are so many Foxfire books. I have
there
the
are.
first three that my great aunt actually let me borrow when I was doing research a couple years ago on stuff. And then since then, I've accumulated a few more of my own. But I have the original, I still have to return them to her, but the original hardback ones here, the
Oh,
first
nice.
three. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, those are fun. Those are fun.
Yeah.
Can you explain to me, or also to the listeners, but I'll be honest, me as well. What's a classics professor? Just
So
kind of
classics
break that down.
professor. Yeah. So classics
Yeah.
professor, Greek and Roman history and
Ah.
culture.
Okay.
Um, Sometimes it gets confused, like you say classics, and people think of like Shakespeare or something, or
Sure.
English classical literature. But no, it's Greek and Roman history.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Do you have a favorite time period or culture that you want to say you're like an expert in, or how do you view that?
okay, well, I don't ever want to say that I'm an expert at anything
Sure.
because there's always more to learn. But
That's
my
true.
favorite time period is the Roman Republic, particularly when Julius Caesar was at his height and when he was assassinated. And then, so between 100 BC and 44 BC of Rome. And then my master's thesis was on the persecution of the Bacchic cult by the Roman
Wow.
Senate in 186 BCE. So those two time periods. Basically, once the emperors start up, I mean, Augustus is all right and stuff, but when we get into
Okay.
the later Roman Empire, I don't care as much. Just it when you get into later studies, you have to really focus anyway. You can't get into the broad stuff. They want you to focus on things. So I focused on the late Roman Republic and then 186 BCE.
So the day job is teaching about that, and then
Yeah,
the
it's an
side
online
thing.
class.
Oh, an online class. Okay, cool. Well,
Yeah,
that's
it's
nice.
online.
That's
Yeah,
nice.
it's been helpful with little ones.
Oh, I totally get that. Yeah. And then the side thing, Small Town Monsters, is Bigfoot and the Bell
Yeah.
Witch, which is that's an awesome. And then
Yeah.
you're writing for different websites, and I
Hmm.
that's pretty dope. I like that. I like that.
Thanks.
Um, I'm curious. You mentioned in your bio haunted stuff. So what
Yeah.
was there a thing that first got you into like, okay, I want to go out and look into haunted locations? So, because I'll be honest, like that's not my jam. Like I'm kind of like I like the Bigfoot stuff and the cryptid stuff, but I'm like haunted stuff, not so much. But I mean, I'm curious like how you got into that.
Well, I mean, I don't know how old I was, but I was always interested in ghost stories and so on. But then at some
Ah,
point, I'm guessing junior high-ish, there were these there was a show on MTV called Fear, where they went into these haunted
yes.
locations, and then
Oh
there was like
no.
Scariest Places on Earth or something that was Linda Blair hosted, and I think the original was it Ghost Hunters with the
Okay.
Taps guys. They
Oh
all
yeah, yeah, yeah.
started like all of that started around the same time, and I just seeing them go into these beautiful locations that also had ghost stories. I was like, someday I want to do
Hmm.
that. And so
Okay. Okay.
it was a couple years ago that I actually went to. It was a public hunt at Mansfield Reformatory or Shawshank
Ah,
Prison, or where Shawshank was filmed, and that was a public hunt. So that was kind of my first taste of it a little bit, and then since then it's been mostly private stuff with smaller groups. But
sure.
um, yeah, once I got to a location, which when I was 16, I think 15 or 16, my brother took me to Mansfield Reformatory for a haunted house. It was the first year that they opened it
Oh.
up. And they dressed up the inside of the prison, the lower levels of the cell blocks, and all of the administration buildings into a haunted house. They actually had it split up into two haunted houses, and my brother had heard an advertisement about it on the local rock station, Rock 107 or 106.9 for people that are familiar. And
Nice. Regional shout
yeah,
out. All right.
yeah. And he told me about it. He's like, "Let's go." And so we went, and I was terrified, but I was terrified. They did a really good job with it. I was
Okay.
terrified, but at the same time I was in love with it. That was the moment I
Ah,
fell in love with Mansfield because it was so beautiful. And so I had started to look into, can we go to these places? Which at that time I was too young, but because you had to be 18 to do the overnight stuff. But
oh yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
it was like a dream
Okay.
come true when I finally got to stay there overnight. Um, but yeah, so it's been around for a while,
Okay.
various
Okay.
things.
Is can you think of a time where you have just been like you've been honestly freaked out, or is it a thing where you're like,
Yeah.
you know, things are cool, but things are not cool. Things are not cool.
Yeah, so um, there's there's been a few. All right, there's been a few times where
If
things
you
have
don't
been
want to talk
weird.
about it, that's
No,
fine
no, no,
too.
no.
Okay.
I'm
All
trying
right.
to
All right.
narrow.
Okay. Okay.
I'm
Okay.
narrowing it down. So
Okay.
there are things that are weird, but the
Oh,
time that I was actually like freaked out was after we got done filming. We had just filmed for On the Trail of Hauntings at Mansfield,
snap.
and the crew left, and then the my friends Travis and Eric and Courtney from Paranormal Unexplained, where we had the Hometown Paranormal group stayed, and we were off. Like the crew left, and the rest of the group came back. Uh, Travis and Eric and Courtney, and they were telling me that there was something in the west attic, and they looked concerned. They're describing something that they said got down on all fours and like crawled toward them.
Nope. Nope. Stop.
Right, right, immediately. And I
uh,
was like, I don't want any part of that. But they're like, no, it's something we've never seen before because we've been to a handful of places. They're like, it's weird. I don't know what it is. And I was like, all right. So we went up, and it was
well,
just the
there's
four of
more to the
us.
story. Okay, because
Oh yeah, there's
already
more
I'm
to it
at the
because
point where I'm like,
you're out.
it's
Yeah,
over. Yeah.
yeah. So we get up there, and in this west attic, which is where they had held prisoners when the original Ohio Penitentiary burned down. They had
Okay.
to transfer some of the hardened criminals to Mansfield, and they kept them in the west attic for a while
Okay.
until they could rehouse them. So this is this room. It's an interior room. There are no windows or anything like that. And the guy that we had interviewed had told us, like the main tour guide at Mansfield for the paranormal, had told us that you could see spook lights in there, which
Oh,
that
crazy.
excited me because spook
Yeah.
lights are cool.
Yep.
So that's why they were in there looking anyway by themselves. But it was more than that. Like we sat down, they pull me, get me to the back end of the west attic. We sit down, we start just sitting there looking in the dark. And yeah, there were a couple lights that popped up, which was cool. But then there was a figure, which the best way that I can describe it, it's like a shadow figure. If you were to see, even if you've never seen a shadow figure, if I say shadow figure, I think most people would think like it's a
Like you can
human-shaped
imagine what it is.
figure.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, like a human-shaped figure, but it's a shadow.
Yep.
Well, it
Right,
was
exactly.
a human-shaped figure, but it was light. And I've never
Okay.
seen anything like that. And it was walking. It would pace back and forth. And when it would get close to the wall or in the center of the room, there were these cross beams that came down. I don't know what the purpose of them were. I can't remember, but it would illuminate the stuff behind it. And then it would get closer. And then when it did get close, it did drop down on all fours and started to crawl. And I wasn't happy about that. I had a hold of Travis. I had a hold of his arm to the point that it went numb.
Wow.
And I'm like, I don't want to be in here. But it was weird. I mean, it didn't do anything, like nobody was hurt or anything like that. That's never really a concern of mine.
Right.
Right or wrong, I guess. Never a concern of mine with that. But that was the only time that I can recall where I was absolutely like actually
Wow.
scared.
Yeah, big no thanks for me. But that's like
Yeah.
a crazy story. Yeah.
Hmm.
Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that
Yeah,
with
no
the
problem. I
audience,
still
because
don't know
that's
what
pretty
it
wild.
is.
That's wild.
It is wild.
I want to shout out friend Alex Petikoff in the audience. You are both super awesome. Well, thank you, good
Thanks,
sir.
Alex. We
All
miss
right.
you. The woods miss you,
Oh,
sir.
that's true. He was just hanging out. I got to hang out with Alex and Eli in Iowa, and
Yeah.
it was awesome.
Nice.
And I
Yeah,
took
they're
him out
both
to Van
cool.
Meter, and it was a great time. I
Sweet.
loved it. For people in the audience, we are going through some questions first. But if you have any questions for Heather, feel free to put those in the chat. And if you put your question in the chat, I will eventually get to that. Make sure you put like bold letters or question and then the question so I can see it easy. What's the origin story for Heather getting involved with STM? I've kind of always wondered this.
I harassed Seth. No. Well, kind of.
Maybe.
So,
I don't know.
maybe. I mean, maybe that's how that worked. So, I heard about Small Town Monsters whenever they put out Minerva Monster because I live I grew up in Carrollton, which is right next to Minerva, Ohio. They're like rivals,
Okay.
school rivals and all that. And I had been watching Finding Bigfoot and interested in Bigfoot. It was something that I'd
Nice.
been aware of my entire life. And so when it came about in the local gossip that somebody was putting a movie about the Minerva Monster, I started paying attention, watched the show, and then they had Minerva Monster Day, and I went there. I was listening to Sasquatch, which was Seth and Mark's
Oh yeah,
podcast, Mark
totally.
Matsky's.
So good.
Yeah, and I just kept an eye on what they were doing. I was interested in it because I like the idea of the people telling the story and not having some sort of agenda or whatnot, and then preserving the stories. But when he put out Mothman of Point Pleasant, what caught my attention was there's a scene in the beginning. It's just it's on the screen. It's a book by James Gay Jones, which is like I think it's called More Appalachian Folktales. And you could tell that he'd pulled a story. It was about Chief Cornstalk from that book, and then he'd done research into the history of the lore. And at this point in time, I was finishing up my master's degree and was out of research mode because when I was writing my thesis, that's all I did was just diving into books and research. And when this came on, I was like, I like that. I miss that. I appreciate that you did that. And I messaged him on Facebook and said, I love what you're doing. I appreciate that. And we started talking. And then I'm like, if you need help with anything, I miss research so much. And
That's so cool.
and we just kept in contact. But then I started looking into cursed objects, and that led me to the rocks at the Bell Witch Cave that people take and then they mail back.
Yeah.
Because I was particularly looking at letters that accompany cursed objects when they're returned to the place that they were taken from. And then there was a premiere, and I can't remember which one, at the Canton Palace Theater. And after the show, he had said something about things that they were possibly doing in the future, and Bell Witch got brought up. And I was like, hey,
Awesome.
I've looked into that. This is it.
Me.
Let me help you. Please let me help.
Yeah.
And he brought me on before Bell Witch. I was on for Momo first, and then Mothman Legacy, and then Bell Witch. But yeah, that was it. So yeah, I guess I did harass him. It's kind of yeah, that's it. Just harass Seth. That's the answer to that.
It sounds like the lesson is if you want fun and cool things to happen, take initiative. That's what I
like
hear.
that. I like that so much better than the way I've always felt like I just harassed the poor man.
No, I think it's taking initiative, and I'm glad you did, because you add a lot to the production company. Definitely, Heather.
Thank you so much.
Do you have a favorite memory of being involved with STM so far?
Huh.
I know you guys are like being crazy all day long. Like,
yeah, we're
it's
like a
goofy
family.
stuff. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah. Our favorite memory? Man, that's tough.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know what a favorite memory would be, because I have fun every time that I'm around them.
Okay.
So
which is awesome.
I can't. Yeah, I can't. I mean, and it depends on who's there, like in the crew, as to what happens and how ridiculous things get. I mean, obviously, Aaron is
oh my goodness,
crazy, hilarious.
Aaron freaks me out. I'm like, that boy is gonna do something and just be like,
yeah, he'll
as
do
a
stuff,
dad, I'm
and
like,
it freaks me out. He freaks
funny,
me
though.
out. Yeah, because
Yeah.
he'll just walk backwards downstairs and stuff, and I'm like, stop. Like, I mean,
I
he'll
don't
just
know
do
how
stuff
he
like
does
that.
it.
But then, we get hauntings episodes where Zach's harassing me about a bad boy ghost, and you like a real bad boy ghost or whatever, and I don't know. And Seth and I are always poking fun at each other. It's just maybe one of my favorite memories, now that I think about it, is probably when we were doing the Bell Witch interview, when they interviewed me for Mark of the Bell Witch.
Okay.
Seth set me up on the questions, and because he knew that I'd been doing all this research for it, and they had already come back from Adams, and they talked to the town historian, and he had found out something that very few people knew, and is not written in the books. Like, if you pick up a book on the Bell Witch, this is not in there. And so he asked me about, it was Drury Bell. Like, in all the books, they explained Drury Bell was too afraid of the witch coming after him, so he never married. Well, apparently, and he didn't have kids or whatever, apparently that's a lie. But that's how it's written in the books. So Seth asks me this question, and I just tell him what I heard, or what I'd read in the books, and both he and Zach were like, well, no, Zach said it. He's like, wrong. You guys are right. You're wrong. While they're in the middle of the interview. And I was like, what?
Oh, no. Oh, that's terrible.
And then Seth's like, yeah, Tim told me, Tim Henson, and he explains he's got this paper, or like, Tim had given him records. And I'm like, well, why didn't you share that with me? Like, why did you not tell me about this? And he's like, well, I needed somebody to say the one version. Yeah, he's like, we needed to have that version and then the other version. I'm like, you are such a punk.
Yep.
But
Bravo.
yeah, no.
Bravo,
yeah, so, and that's whenever, you got to call people out on that. I yell at both him and Zach for that one. Like, you guys, thanks.
Good
Love
stuff.
you both.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Quick side note, people in the audience that are hanging out with us, if you have any questions for Heather, feel free to put those in the chat. I will be bringing those up in a few minutes, but I still got some stuff to go through. So, hold on tight, audience. We're getting there. So, okay. So I watched the video last week of the 2022 release schedule, and it blew my mind. It was like crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it was like, I thought you guys were done, and you just kept going and going and going. I was like, I'm counting 20 solid releases in a year. That's nuts. But I'm super pumped because I'm a Bigfoot guy, and Beyond the Trail is like 10 different things. Eli and Alex are going to be like,
they're going to be busting their
tails the whole year, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
More power to them. But I kind of want to know, because there's something that was glossed over extremely quick. And I'm very interested in it. So, and if you can't talk about it, then just say I can't talk about it, and
Okay.
that's cool
All
too.
right. That's
Can
fine.
you say anything about like what the lore you know is? What's your podcast about?
Oh yeah, I can tell you about
Can you
that.
talk about it?
Yeah. So I'm going to be interviewing different people in the paranormal and cryptozoology communities, um, and asking them about what they do, what they have written about, and then their take on folklore, their favorite bits of folklore and stuff.
That's
So it's going to be
awesome.
an interview show, is what it's going to be.
That's
But
awesome. I love
yeah,
interview. Obviously, since I'm doing an interview podcast, I love them. But like
yeah,
that is very. I love the twist on folklore. That's gonna be
that's
rock and
awesome.
roll. I'm
Thanks.
excited for
I'm
that.
excited.
Um, do you have? So, do you still experience residual things from the Bell Witch scenario, or has that kind of calmed down? Hopefully.
You mean like the dreams and stuff
Yeah.
that were happening?
Yeah.
Now, I haven't dreamt of her in a
Thank goodness.
while. Yeah, I mean, she wasn't bothering me or anything. But no, I
Okay.
haven't had a dream about her in a good while. Um,
Good. Good.
yeah, so she must be happy with whatever we did. That's how I take that.
That's awesome.
She's
I'm gonna go.
satisfied
Yeah, for now, until
for now.
Bell Witch 2, Legend of Curly's Gold comes out, then we're in trouble. But um, I've got a question here for you from Mr. Jonathan Dodd,
Okay.
and he says, "What's your tackling a new research project?" This is good because it kind of
Okay.
takes a few of my questions out of the way as well. But this is a good one.
Well, it depends on what it is. So, like, if it's something I'm not familiar with, first thing I have to do is figure out what Seth's talking about. So, for example, for
That's huge.
example,
That's
yeah, the
huge.
very first project that he had me on Momo, he he said I need you to find witnesses and stuff for Momo, and I was like, sure. I didn't know what Momo was. I didn't know that story at all. So
Oh,
I had to
sure.
research about the Missouri Monster. And at that time, I knew that he wasn't talking about the internet thing, but at that time there was this whole Momo thing
It was
online.
huge. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I
Yeah,
had to figure out first of all Momo, but let's just go with Missouri Monster and type that in because if you type in Momo, you're going to be in a
it's not a
minefield of
good
other
time.
stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so start with that. Start with the story. Figure out the story. And then the time frame on it, and obviously I'll look for books if people have had books on it. And then one of the first things I do, even before I get into the depths of the reading, is I'll go to the bibliography of the different texts and see who they've cited. And I think that part of
Oh.
that is because of when I was in graduate school, we focused a lot on trying to get to the primary sources, as close to the
Hmm.
original sources as possible. And I still like to do that because the more we tell a story, the more we skew it kind of to our own view.
Right.
So I try to go back to as close to the original source as possible. And sometimes that's newspaper articles or
Right. Yeah.
I mean, depending on what the situation is, sometimes it's going to Ancestry and looking up birth certificates to see if this person even
Oh, that's a good
existed.
idea. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so that's kind of a Google. That's step one, Google, and then see what comes up and go from there and sift through a bunch of websites, see if they're verified, like if they, because so many websites just repeat other websites, which really irritates me. They don't cite their sources. That's a huge pet peeve of mine. And it's just copy and paste from whoever the original source was. There's 50
Oh,
websites
sure.
that say the same
Yeah.
thing. So I like to try to do that. But essentially, I just that's it. I Google it and then I start digging and just take it back as far
Okay.
as I can.
I'm going to tag on to that question. Are there any other resource things that people would want to, get good at using in order to do their own research besides, obviously Google, but is there anything else that you have at your disposal that you use?
Okay, well, first I want to say, and this is probably controversial, but if you go to Wikipedia, that's not a bad thing because, and
Okay,
it,
explain.
Yeah, so Wikipedia isn't a horrible thing as long as you look at the footnotes, because there should be footnotes in these
Okay,
articles.
sure. Yep.
Go to those footnotes and then go from there. The footnotes
Mm,
sometimes are a great place to start. So, you get whatever summary that somebody wrote up, but the footnotes are key. So anyway, Wikipedia is not horrible. Obviously, Google. Newspapers.com has been a savior for me. Access to
oh, sure.
Ancestry.com, especially if you're doing genealogy or you're trying, even for the research that I've done for Seth, I've used Ancestry.com, which you can get access to that a lot of times through your local library. So you don't have to pay whatever the ridiculous fee is a year for Ancestry. Um, findagrave.com. I use that a lot.
Findagrave.com. That sounds cool.
Yeah, it's sweet. So it is exactly what it sounds like. You find
Okay.
graves. It'll
Wow.
show you you type in a name and a location, and you can either search cemeteries and everybody that's buried there,
Oh, fun.
or that's great. Or
Yeah.
you can type in the name and then a location, and they'll try to narrow it down. But you can also download the app. I have the app on my phone, so if you go to a cemetery and you have the app on your phone, you can bring up that cemetery and you can see where people have requested headstones that aren't currently
Oh,
pictured or in the database. And then as you're walking through the cemetery, if you see them, you take a picture, you upload it, and you've just helped that person put a piece
that's
of their
awesome.
family tree
Yeah,
together. So
that is really
yeah,
cool. I'll have to check that
yeah.
out.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Here's an interesting one. From Missile 1572 on YouTube. Sorry, I do not know who you are, but this question is really cool. Heather, do you have an opinion, or what's your opinion of ghost or monster in other continents, like Asian
Oh,
mythology? Anything to say about that?
they're cool.
Yeah,
And
it
I
gets
am not
wild.
it does, and I'm not super well versed in anything, and not even all of Europe, but outside of Europe is not really my thing.
Okay.
Um, but some of the stuff in Asian mythology that I've seen can get really gruesome, really gnarly, and
It can.
it's
Yes,
cool.
totally. Yeah,
Um, I like it. I just haven't taken the time to dive into it and find, you put it
it can
all
go
in
wild.
categories. But yeah, it's neat, and it would be interesting someday to look at connections between, because I mean, everything gets influenced by other things, just to trace and see what pieces
That's
we've
true.
picked up from other cultures. So
That is
someday
true.
maybe.
Do you have going back to STM for a minute? Do you have a project? Um, mm, Sorry, really bad. I'll be totally honest with my
You're
audience right now.
fine.
I have a bad memory, really bad. Did I ask you? Do you have a project coming up in 2022 from SCM that has you really excited? I don't think that
I
came up yet.
No, it didn't.
Okay.
Well, I'm really excited about getting the lore off the ground,
Okay.
um, to getting to know different researchers and stuff. That's going to be awesome. But man, uh, I'm excited about all of it. I just geek out about all this stuff,
It's
so
crazy.
it's really hard
It's
to narrow
crazy.
it down. I'm really excited about Jersey Devil.
Oh yeah,
Honestly,
how is that going to work? I'm really curious about that one.
it's going to be fantastic. Is how
Oh
it's
yeah,
going to work
totally. Yeah.
flawlessly. Um, yeah, so Jason is doing the bulk of the writing, like as of right now, pretty much all the
Okay.
writing. He's done an excellent job so far on the script. Like every time I see a new piece that Jason has written, I get more excited about what this is going to be.
Wow.
I don't think I can go into too much detail about how we're going to approach it, but it's going to be
That's
completely
fine.
different than other stuff that we've done. Um,
Ooh, rocking. Okay.
yeah, and I'm totally pumped about how this is going to turn out. I
That's
can't.
awesome. I'm
Yeah, Jason's
excited.
a great
I'm excited.
writer, and man, yeah, that's what I'm probably most excited about as far as the projects. But then the other, I mean, I don't know, everything else is super exciting too. Just, I don't know. It's all going to be awesome. I'm biased, but yeah, it's going to be great.
Tate, I didn't forget to ask your question. I chose not to ask it, so boom roasted. Um,
Wow.
Just kidding. Just kidding, Tate. Stop getting crazy on me. Okay, here's Tate's question.
Okay.
I appreciate Tate Hieronymus. Does Heather know who Tate Hieronymus is?
Yeah.
Just say no.
I know the name. Here's
Okay.
what I know. I know the name because that gets thrown
no,
around
keep
a
it.
lot.
Ooh.
It does. No, that's it. I
No,
know
it
the
does.
name.
It in a good way. It really does.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I didn't mean in a
Yeah.
bad way. If it was a bad way, I wouldn't have admitted that I knew the name.
That's true. That's true.
But yes, I know your name. I don't know you yet though, so let's change that.
You are validated, Tate. Yeah, get involved with small town monsters. I don't know. Hang out. Just hang out, dude. Get out of Florida. Wait, you did get out of Florida. You went to California. Let's get into a few Bigfoot things.
Okay.
What if you had to explain to someone's like, "Hey, what's Bigfoot?" What is your viewpoint of that?
Oh man.
Yeah, it's a tricky one.
So I would say that if you were just trying to explain it to somebody, I would say, well, it's probably people would say that it's an undiscovered primate in the woods of North America. A large primate, like 7 to 9 feet tall, massive.
Huge.
That's very elusive. And that would be exactly how I would explain it to someone. I don't know my personal opinion on it because I've not seen one. So,
well, so hold on now. I haven't seen one either, but I have a personal opinion on it. So,
see,
I mean,
the problem is that I haven't seen one, but I've also heard reports that contradict each other as far as whether it's a physical creature or a paranormal creature. And
so have
the reports that I've heard are from people that I trust and respect and would not think that they're just making stuff up. And so therefore, I feel like if I were to just go hardcore one way, then that's contradicting someone that I care about who had a paranormal experience. And so I would rather just not, until I have my own experience, not come up with a definitive thing.
Okay. I can get that. I can get that, but it's also like if we are able to be, and this is me talking, I'm talking to myself right now. If we're able to be adults, I think that we can talk with people that view things differently than I might view them, and we can be okay with that. Now, of course, this real life, that's not going to happen all the time. I get it, but you know, I get what you're saying.
It seems like if I were to have to guess, that it would be a physical creature that has abilities that we don't understand yet. That would be where I would, if I were to do like actually have a definitive thing. But I can also see the idea that it's some other type of creature that we don't understand at all. That isn't necessarily physical. So I haven't made up my mind.
No problem.
I guess.
No problem. Do you have a going from your knowledge about Bigfoot, do you have a favorite piece of evidence or anything that stands out? Okay. No sweat. Alex is sniping one of my questions and he's saying, "Hey Heather, do you have a favorite Bigfoot story you've come across or been told about?"
Favorite Bigfoot story. I don't know. I've heard story one. Okay, so I find it interesting when there's stories that involve Bigfoot and other creatures. So, for example, in the Minerva monster case, that there are big cats that accompany Bigfoot. I find that interesting. I don't know, that one's intriguing to me, but I also am interested in the stories where Bigfoot just kind of, he's there, but then he just disappears into like mist or something.
Totally,
that
yeah,
I find
that's weird, right?
really intriguing. It is.
That's weird. Yeah.
But I can't think of a specific story necessarily that I'm like, oh yeah, I love it. I mean, there's Nobby down in North Carolina, that there was a story that when he would come around, they'd feed him like moon pies and stuff because he liked that.
Oh, really? Sweets. I haven't heard that one. So
that one's entertaining to me.
His name is Nobby?
Yeah, because
Okay.
I think it was called Nob Hill. It was like the mountain or something. It's in
Oh
Cleveland
yeah,
County,
sure. Yeah, yeah,
North
yeah.
Carolina.
Okay.
So, and they called him Nobby.
And he
Yeah,
loves moon
and he
pies. I love it.
apparently, yeah.
Apparently, that's how the legend goes. To kind of make that question a little bit more broad, um, any other cryptid stories that you enjoy besides Bigfoot, or if not,
Yeah.
then move
No,
on.
I mean I'm interested in all the cryptid stories, I guess. I'm not as big into UFO stuff as which I don't count that as cryptids anyway, but it seems to
But
be
no,
lumped into
I
stuff a
yeah.
lot of times. Um, but I am most unnerved by, I guess if this would count as a favorite somehow, I am most unnerved by dogmen stuff. So like the Rougarou, I love
Okay.
researching all of that, but I would never want to run across a dogman of any sort. That would no,
Why
that
so?
would scare me. Well, one, I don't like big dogs. They scare me.
Okay. Yeah,
Anyway,
these
just
are
big
huge dogs.
dogs.
Yeah.
So then to see one that's on two legs that's massive, I would probably have a heart attack. So those and then goatmen, like the Popelec
Oh
monster or
yeah. No
something.
thanks.
If I were to see
No
something
thanks.
like that, that would be bad. So I don't know if those count as my favorites, but they're the ones that have my attention. Wendigos are interesting.
Also
Um,
bad news.
yeah, they are bad news, but for some reason those ones don't scare me as much as
Really?
Dogman. Yeah,
That's
yeah, I
crazy
don't
because you
know.
look at an illustration of them, and Wendigos are horrifying.
They
There's like this
are,
ear thing that it's like, wow.
yeah,
I
but
don't know.
maybe it's because of the way sometime in some of the dreams that I had about the Bell Witch, she had a head similar to that in the dreams, and I was
Oh
never
yeah,
scared
sure.
of her.
Okay.
So that
That's an
might be part
interesting
of it, I
spin.
guess. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
no, that makes sense
If you're
because
going off of dreams.
in the Bell Witch movie, you they made it didn't they make the witch look like what you were seeing in your dream, right?
Yes. Yeah.
That's intense. That's very
Yeah.
intense.
Yeah.
Got a few more questions that are coming in. I'm gonna acknowledge this one. I think it's already been answered though. Heather, I hear you're pretty cool. Well, yeah, she is. Do you believe in flesh and blood, Bigfoot, or interdimensional? I think you already went over that
Yeah, that's Mothman
right before.
46.
Oh yeah, Mothman 46, of course. Yeah, forgot
He's
to
awesome.
shout out the coolest dude ever.
Heck yeah.
Heck yes. Um, Jonathan has got another one. What's your number one bucket list research project?
Oh man. I don't bucket list research project? Weird or other? Oh man. I don't know. I don't know,
Let's
honestly. That's a
let's say
huge
Seth is
question.
like, Heather, here's a blank check. You can make your own project and we'll go. You can research it. We'll go anywhere, and money's no
Oh my
object.
word.
You know what I
Oh
mean?
goodness gracious.
Yeah. Yikes.
Uh, I have no idea. There's too many things. It'd be probably somewhere over in Europe. I'd,
Okay.
I always want to go back to Norway, so maybe I'd tie something into Norwegian mythology somehow. But I don't know. It would be really cool to go to some places that have the older castles, or go to Ireland or Scotland or
Oh
something like
yeah,
that,
for
and
sure.
get
For sure.
into any of that. I'm always about ghost stories, so it'd probably be something to
Mm-hmm.
do with ghosts at that point.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
I've been
I don't
over
know.
to Ireland 2 times, and it's just like
Mm,
it's crazy. Like you can just walk into these old abbeys, and like
yeah.
there's no fences up. It's just like
Mhm.
whatever, and it's very cool, very laid back, and like the the stories are everywhere for sure.
Yeah.
Follow that up with Mothman saying Aaron G would curb stomp a dog man. I mean, you can do anything once, kids, but once you, I mean, I'm not sure he's coming back from it, but you can do anything once.
Aaron would do it. He'd try it.
Yeah, he would definitely do it. Um, Here's a fun one from my friend Greg from all dot the dot weird. Heather, do you believe in ghosts? but also communication, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Living can
Yep.
communicate with them.
Sure do.
Okay. I know
Absolutely.
we already talked about your thoughts on ghosts and ghost hunting
Mhm.
earlier, but
Yeah.
is that something where it's like you're trying to do like EVP sessions or communication and
Yeah.
stuff like that? Okay.
Yeah, so well I mean I've done the EVP stuff. The problem is I hate to go back and listen to audio for
Oh
hours
yeah.
or however
Takes
long
forever,
we've had
right?
it recorded. And because you're just, yeah, no, I'm not a huge fan of going back through the evidence. Doing it's fine. Just asking questions or whatever. If somebody else wants to go through it, that's great. But I like to do the Estes method, where you get like a spirit box or the Phasma box, and somebody has headphones on and their eyes closed, and they're listening to the radio stations go through, and they're repeating words that they hear that are clear or phrases that are clear, while the rest of the group is not directly next to them, and they're asking questions. And then when the answers come through that you're repeating that answer those questions, that's cool. I like to do that kind
Hmm.
of stuff.
That
Um,
yeah. Yeah, that's pretty wild. Yeah. Bigfoot's more my thing, but it's crazy stuff. I mean, yeah, good question, Craig. um I want to ask this do you, let's say I usually ask this about cryptozoology, but like people that are trying to get into folklore, do you have like
yeah.
any books that you can recommend for people to check out?
Well, if there's Appalachian folklore, that's
Okay.
more my wheelhouse than other
Yeah,
places.
sure.
But
Sure.
so if you go there, you have Ruth Ann Music is huge. She wrote down a ton of stuff, and there's multiple books that she wrote. The James Gay Jones stuff that was referenced in Mothman at Point Pleasant. I have three of his books. Um, there are actually what I've been trying to do as far as the Appalachian stuff is there's a group on Facebook that I help run called Appalachian Cryptids and Folklore, and I
Oh,
try
nice.
my best. Every Tuesday I try. I don't always succeed, but every Tuesday I try to put a book out that the picture of a book and a summary and the page numbers and all of that, and like just a little brief snippet from the book, and it's Appalachian folklore, and usually with a
Nice.
cryptid twist on it or whatever. So any of those books that I've put out there, I
Perfect.
appreciate it. Foxfire is huge for folklore, of course,
Yeah. Right.
in this region. But what I would do is I would, if I were looking into folklore of a region that I'm not familiar with, I would go to whether it be Google or Amazon and type in folklore of that region, or go to jstor.org, which is an academic journal website. Type that in and see what comes up in the query. And a lot of times you'll see authors that have a significant footprint on that particular genre
Okay.
repeated. Their names will show up multiple times, and then start there. And then go to the
That's really good.
bibliography.
Yeah.
Do that.
That's true. I like that. I like that. I'm going to shout out a few people that just showed up. We got Strangeology. Hey, friends, I've arrived. Good to see you, bud.
Hey,
Uh
Strangeology, wait.
oh.
I have your shirt. I'm
Hey,
wearing your
Mothman
shirt
shirt.
right now, a Mothman shirt.
Am I? Wait a minute. This is going to be awkward. Nope, I'm not. Sorry, bud. Um, 6 out of 7 days of the week, I'm wearing a Strangeology shirt because I have so many. To the point that my kid says, "Dada, do you have any other shirts besides cryptid shirts?" I'm like, "No, they're all amazing Strangeology shirts. You know this. You know this. You've asked me too many times." Um, Tactical Bigfoot research. My friend Mike says, "Hey guys, sorry I'm late." Well, better late than never, dude. I'm glad to see you. I'm going to give about a. If you've got any other questions, definitely get them in right now. Maybe have about 10, 15 minutes. But I want to make sure that all the questions get in, especially from the people that just came into the group or the live stream rather. Do you have any advice to people that are just getting into like cryptozoology, the weird folklore, stuff like that?
Read as much as you can.
Read.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, read the blogs, listen to podcasts. Um, yeah, that's where I started reading and listening.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And then
Yeah,
go to cool
it's cool.
things like Cryptid Bash, where you get to meet these people,
Cryptid
or
Bash.
Mothman Festival, if it happens again, go there, meet all of these awesome people, because we have a really nice community.
It, yeah, so you're absolutely right. And people I talk to are like, the community, like, I guess right now the community is really nice. And
Yeah.
like, I want to say that the people that are in the live stream and us are doing, like, trying to make it a healthy place, right?
Mhm.
Because there are some places you can go, it is not a healthy place. And I do not
Mhm.
like that. But
Yeah.
also, Van Meter Visitor Festival is coming up in 2 weeks, and
There
I will
you
be
go.
there. Have a table. We'll be doing live interviews and pick up a shirt. So if you're listening to this, I hope to see you at the Van Meter Visitor Festival. You can meet me with the podcast. You can see the Hodag truck from Wisconsin,
Ooh.
and all sorts of cool speakers like David Weatherly, Ken Gearhart, and Nash Hoover, and more. Be good
Nice.
time. But that's my shout out for the Van Meter. Oh, and actually, same day, Whitehall Bigfoot Fest coming up as well. It's the same day, September
Um,
25th. Awesome folks and speakers. Um,
yeah,
Mothman 46
I was gonna
has
say I think
my
Alex
secret
is
is
gonna
out
be
of the
there.
bag. Yeah, Alex is going to be there. My secret is out of the bag. Jeremiah is working on a Gonzo Cornfoot documentary. Yep. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
I tried to keep that hidden, but um, before we wrap things up, because we are getting to the point where we're getting silly, which is awesome. What are ways that people can keep up to date with what you're doing?
Well, on Instagram, I'm at Pagan Historian, so you can
Okay.
follow me on Instagram. Just follow Small Town Monsters.
Heck yes.
Uh, Follow, their webpage, or go to YouTube and follow us on YouTube. Become a channel member.
Oh yeah, totally.
Um, yeah, it's worth it. And you can see me on there. You can email me if you've got stories or something, or any type
Nice.
of information that you should share. Email me at heather@smalltownmonsters.com.
Oh, cool.
Um, I'm on Facebook. I, just my name. You'll
Oh,
see
I
me
can't
if you're
believe
friends with
we
other people.
we forgot to mention Mothman 46 Paranormal Unexplained. Watch Paranormal
Yeah,
Unexplained. Heather's in it. So good.
yeah.
Yeah,
Every Wednesday, you can
it's my
watch a new
highlight.
episode of Paranormal Unexplained and see
So good.
what goofiness ensues with that.
I'm gonna say, seriously, the Small Town Monsters squad. So here's so I'm a squad member because it's rocking. It's the same
Awesome.
reason that I am a member of Disney Plus, because I really like the Star Wars content that
Mhm.
Disney Plus made, and I want them to make more of it. I really like the Bigfoot content that Small Town Monsters makes, and Alex and Eli, and I want to say, here's my money, make more of this, and all
Yeah,
the other stuff you're doing too. So it's like
thank you.
$5-6 a month. Come on, people, like let's get it
Yeah,
popping.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
2022 is gonna rock, dude. So,
Oh.
Heather, thank you so much for coming on and hanging out and answering our crazy questions. And thank you so much for everything you do with Small Town Monsters and just being a awesome human being. So
Aw, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
you got it. And hopefully I'll get to meet you and all the Small Town Monster
Heck
crew
yeah.
besides Alex and Eli someday. But oh,
Yeah.
and we'll end with this from Mothman 46. Aaron is busy from the front, party in the back. I mean,
Yes.
I really need to have Aaron on this podcast. So if you could be like,
All
"Hey,
right.
Aaron, go on, Bigfoot Society. It's so cute." But
Okay.
I'm gonna try
Yeah.
again. But
Okay. I'll
we'll
see
see.
if I can convince him. It'll be awesome. He's
All
he's
right,
entertaining, to say the least.
for sure, for sure. Well, listeners in the audience, thanks so much for hanging out with us tonight. Heather, thank you. And we're gonna go ahead and end things out. And make sure that you're back here next week. I will have Mr. Doug Highcheck from Monster Quest, and we'll be talking about all sorts of stuff because that guy has done everything. And yeah, we'll see you next week. So have a good one, guys.